Georgia taking hits from Hurricane Irma, and while the storm has been downgraded, it's knocked out power for more than 1 million people. Joining us now, a Georgia resident, Senator David Perdue, I dare say sometimes Sea Island resident. You know, Lasry's here too, Senator. You remember this guy. We used to have to, kiss up to him when he owned Sea Island. What can you tell us, Senator, about the state in general, and have you heard about, I've heard a few things anecdotally about Sea Island that it's not awful at this point anyway.
Well, good morning, guys. Yeah, we had a big storm, not like Florida did, but it was big. We had an 11-foot surge in Savannah because it hit at the high tide yesterday. But Georgia's digging out today. You know, the airport shut down in Atlanta yesterday late. I was on one of the last planes out. As I was evacuating the coast over the weekend, I noticed dozens of trucks, out-of-state power trucks, headed down to restore electricity. So water and wind was a big story in Georgia. We did have 3 fatalities. We got 1 million people without power. You know, people are not working in many parts of the state today. So we've got to get power going again and make sure people get back into their homes safely.
Senator, things are still happening, and I hesitate to ask you this, but, you know, they say all politics are local. Does that deal that the president cut with Democrats to get immediate relief for these hurricanes, does that look more palatable to a guy like you when you see that we need to do this quickly? You didn't maybe get everything you wanted with the debt ceiling, and it's going to come back in December, but was that the right move now in your view?
Joe, this is what's at stake here. We're losing the right to do the right thing. Every dollar that the president and everybody allocated up here toward relief for Harvey and now for Irma is borrowed money. We've had this conversation. We're losing the right to do the right thing. That's what we should be talking about up here, is how not to do that in the future.
All right, but in the face of true need for residents of Texas and Georgia and Florida and the Carolinas, isn't the right thing to maybe rise above? We used to use that term at this network, but isn't the right thing to just get it done even if you have to go across the aisle?
Well, that's what Washington did last week. People criticized the president, but that's exactly what the president did. Congress stepped up and voted for that. In a matter of crisis, a moment of crisis, that's exactly what we do. The problem is, in the future, we're going to have less and less ability to deal with these emergencies like this. But in a moment of crisis, we do what we have to do, Joe.
So, Senator, we're going to talk to Treasury Secretary Mnuchin in about a half hour or so. Do you think that this latest move by President Trump changes the dynamic of tax reform?
Well, I don't really think so. I mean, we've got this in our own hands. We're going to do this in reconciliation. But what we have to do is focus on the priorities. I know that's what the Secretary is going to talk to you about. Our corporate rates are not competitive with the rest of the world. That makes our companies in the U.S. very vulnerable. We are the last country to have a repatriation tax. Those two things alone will free up a lot of capital and get our economy going again. And then we've got to simplify this individual tax code. So that's what I'd love for you to talk to the Secretary about. And then other things are the regulatory moves that his department are doing right now to pull back on some of these onerous regulations in Dodd-Frank and CFPB.
So you just told me outright, so Heidi Heitkamp is not going to be part of the reconciliation process then. This is going to be reconciliation. It's not going to be a deal with Chuck and Nancy and Heidi and everybody else. You just told me that. It's not going to be permanent. It's not going to be 60.
We're going to welcome anybody that will vote for this thing, but I didn't just get off the plane, Joe. What we've got to do is make sure we get this priority done at all costs. That's what the American people want. I just spent several weeks running around our state, and I can tell you that's exactly what people expect. If we get this tax package done in some form, this economy is wanting to turn right now. Consumer confidence at a 16-year high. CEO confidence is up at a 20-year high. And I believe we're seeing the first stages of real CapEx investment right now in U.S. business. I'm optimistic if we get this tax thing done, we'll see this economy start to turn.
So, Senator, you said do the right thing in terms of not adding to the deficit. You saw we went over $20 trillion. I know you saw that. So does that include doing the right thing, includes paying for all the tax cuts, or do we do dynamic scoring, which assumes future growth that a whole group of people either don't want or don't think it can happen?
Joe, you have to include dynamic scoring. I mean, that's a Washington term. I never knew what that meant in real business. What we did is we actually did financial models that made sense. These scoring models up here are not, they have no relation to the real world. If I don't do anything else up here, we've got to change the way Washington decides on these financial matters. The budget process, how we do all these finaglings, if you will, around scoring, do not lead to the right economic decisions in many cases. Let me give you the case in point. This repatriation tax is going to get scored very badly if we eliminate it. Well, the problem is we're the last country in the world that has that. We know we've got to get rid of that. But our scoring keeps us from doing, in many cases, the right things up here. And by the way, when I'm talking about doing the right thing is to help the people in Georgia and Texas and Florida and South Carolina. The problem is we're losing the ability to do the right thing. That's what I'm up here talking about.
Yeah, people forget that. Yeah, sooner or later we run out of other people's money, I guess. Anyway,
Right,
Senator
exactly.
Perdue, thank you and good luck. And we're obviously some property there as well. We're pulling for Georgia. Hopefully everything's going to come back better than ever. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.